Welcome back, episode 7 of the In the Slot podcast. Good time. We just had championship week in most fantasy football seasons. So if you've still got next week to go, then hopefully you haven't picked anyone on a team that doesn't have anything left to play for. But also an exciting time. When the end of the fantasy season comes, it starts to be playoff time. The NFL really starts to spark up, but it couldn't have come at a better time for me. I feel like interest has really peaked here. Being a Seahawks fan, it's an interesting time of the year. So we'll see what happens there. But Connor, why don't you take us back to last week? We did in the Slot Busters. I believe it was game week number 5 last week.
Yeah, and I agree. This is a very exciting time because it is time for In the Slot Busters, and it's only right that we go through last week's. At this point, I feel like I'm going to ignore our YouTube fans because they're not commenting. And if you do want to be involved, do comment because you do have the chance to win a helmet of your team's choice. But yeah, I'll do last week's one. I'll read it out and then I'll hand it over to our co-hosts Josh, Henry, and Chris, and they'll give me any guesses that they might have for last week's cryptic clue. So it was, I'm a species of bird. Yes, I'm a species of bird. And oh my God, do I have power? So over to you guys.
I had 2 guesses, but I know they're wrong. So I'll just start off with them in case anyone else actually got closer than me. If it was a species of fish, yes, a species of fish, then I would have had Ray Armstrong, and I'm pretty confident that would have been correct. But obviously that's not a species of bird, so I'm confident that's not the right answer. So then I went back to species of birds, and I thought, what's a very small bird that flies around pretty quickly, lives in the Detroit Lions backfield? DeAndre Swift. But I don't know how DeAndre becomes powerful. So those were my 2 guesses, I'm afraid.
So last week I had a couple of guesses and we managed to get sort of in the area with our guesses. I do not know this week at all. I couldn't get off thinking of names with a repetition, as you said, yes, and then repeated it again. So I was thinking along the lines of like Juju, Smith-Schuster, but there's obviously that has no reflection of a bird. So I could not get anything on this one, Connor. You got me.
Yeah, over my head as well.
All right, so I actually thought this one might have been a little bit like easier than the one that seems to just go on and on and on with Michael Gallup. And obviously, due to your comments, I did have to move away from Cowboys players, and I don't think I can ever return to a Cowboys player because otherwise it will just look like my NFL knowledge lives and dies in that Dallas Cowboys lineup or X lineup or possible commentators. So it won't be there anymore. But from last week's clue, Josh, you were down the perfect line with that repetition of Ray. I have gone, and it's a slight play on his name. It is JJ Watt. So I'm a species of bird. J. And oh my God, do I have power? Obviously, Watt. So
nice.
You went down the right lines. Obviously, you just went for fish instead, which wasn't in the cryptic clue. But
well, I went more because I couldn't think of anyone whose name sounded like a bird, like Henry did. I stumbled after the repetition, couldn't think of any birds. It's so disappointing when Ray and JJ are so close together. And I even said that, and I even said, then I thought of JJ, and I didn't think of Watt. I just discounted him because I didn't think of Watt being a unit of power, which obviously you got us there with a bit of outside box thinking.
Very good clue, Connor. Nice one.
Yep. So I'm glad that one managed to not get unveiled again. We're now into week 6 of In the Slot Busters, and I believe the record is I might have to go back to see who's got the tally. I might start tallying up who's got them right, but at the moment you've got 4 out of the 6. So it was the first 4 which were a bit easier. I think it was learning for me as to where those would go, but we'll continue.
I think we had 5. I think we've had 5 so far, Connor. I think we've got 3 out of 5. Yeah, I think we've got 3 out of 5 combined.
There you go. I've added 1 on. Maybe I've just done too many in my head already.
Yeah,
Just-
you're
just
just giving
losing
us
track
a
of where we
nice
are.
benefit. We're already going to get this week's one. So yeah, let's see. But
I'm confident. But yeah, if you hang around to the middle of the episode, there'll be our cryptic clue for this week's guest. And do make sure you like and subscribe.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah. And let's take it back to the real life NFL. Obviously, JJ Watt had a pretty established press conference. I'm sure that's gone on around the world. But let's talk about some booms and some busts. Connor, anyone specifically who stood out this week to you as a boom or a bust?
As a boom or a bust? I think. Can I go for a whole team for a bust?
Yeah, go for a team.
Browns. It's very, very disappointing. But then on the other side of that, I think it's a bust for the Jets as well.
That's how you lose your number one pick, like the franchise-altering player that everyone's built up. Chris, what about you? Booms or busts?
I took a similar approach for the busts, but in terms of the wide receivers, I had all of the wide receivers, all the starting wide receivers in the Seattle Rams game. DK Metcalf, 59 yards. Tyler Lockett, 44 yards. Cooper Kupp, 66 yards. Robert Woods, 48 yards. No touchdowns between any of them. Very disappointing for anybody who had them in their championship weeks. On the flip side of that, Alvin Kamara, huge game, six touchdowns. And Tom Brady, 4 touchdowns, 348 yards. He was benched at halftime. Spare the Detroit Lions blushes. And also a shout out to Jamison Crowder. He had 1 rush attempt for 14 yards, caught 7 of 9 targets for 92 and a touchdown, and he threw 1 touchdown for 43 yards. You know, he's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he had a very good week. Henry, I'm sure Kamara was on your boom of a week as he won you the championship in our league. Take us through who else filled out your slots.
Yeah, I was hoping for a little shout out at the top of the show there, Josh, but I'll take that. Yeah, I had a great week with Kamara and Myles Gaskin in my in our league actually, and that we're all a part of. So those two, 8 combined touchdowns, over 300 yards between them, led me to a fancy title, which was a big deal for me. I was delighted with that. So they were definitely in my booms. I also mentioned Myles Gaskin as a one to watch last week, so really nice to see that paying off. And JD McKissick as well as my other running back last week had a nice game. And then an outside shot who's not even owned in our fantasy league, seems to be reborn this year, is Nelson Aguilar. 155 yards and a touchdown. Now is the 18th ranked fantasy receiver in non-PPR. So really, really good season for Aguilar. I think he's mostly known for dropping passes in Philadelphia. So nice to see him having a huge bounce back game. And my last one is Brandon Allen, Bengals quarterback, more so for how the whole team looked. So Bengals put up 37 points. Brandon Allen had a great game. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that offense under Zach Taylor next year. Hopefully get Joe Burrow back healthy. And if Brandon Allen's putting up 37 points, imagine what Burrow could do. I'm looking forward to that team next year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at some point you do have to start asking some questions. Why do they have the winning record they have when Joe Burrow started so many games already? I mean, let's not knock the guy too much, but that's already a bit of a black mark on him there for me. Some other booms from my side, there's all the big ones. Obviously, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs both had massive games, and Josh Allen did too. Mike Evans benefited massively with Tom Brady. David Johnson also had a really interestingly good game. But one which stood out for me was Jeff Wilson, running back for the 49ers. I think he looks the real deal. They've got a great corps of running backs there, going to be causing some fantasy managers some headaches next season, I imagine. In terms of bust, though, the 2 Titans wide receivers, A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, they just got bottled up by Green Bay. J.A. Alexander was mostly on Corey Davis, from my understanding, and he got 0 points. I don't know if that tallied any receptions for no yards. So maybe in PPR he got a bit more than that, but basically nothing. And if you had him in fantasy championship week, it was probably a loss for you there. So yeah, interesting to see. It was nice to see there were so many booms rather than so many busts this week from my side. Hopefully a lot of people who could have won people fantasy matchups rather than lose them. It's always better to have a shootout and have the better team win rather than the worst team lose. It sounds like a terrible analogy, but that's the way it is. Connor, we already talked about in the slot busters from last week. Why don't you tell us what this week number 6 is? See if
we're going straight in for it as well.
Why not?
Oh, absolutely. So this week's going straight into this week's cryptic clue. Hopefully I can keep my sort of run if we're looking at it in terms of like me v you or me v all of you. But yeah, so I have got this week's. I like one thing that has occurred to me over the past few weeks is that we are starting to get some new followers, some new viewers. We've had a few new subscribers this week, and shout out to those people because you aren't people that we actually know. So it's great to see that we've actually got some subscribers now who are finding the channel. So I will describe what In the Slot Busters is again. And the idea of this game is that I provide you, our listeners, and our co-hosts Josh, Henry, and Chris a cryptic clue which will break down the name of a player, either past or present, or someone who's associated with the NFL. It could be a coach, it could be someone who commentates, it could be whoever, just as long as they're associated with the NFL. And the idea is for you to break down that cryptic clue and have some guesses as to who you think it is. And there's no shame in getting the wrong answers. We've already heard a couple of where the guesses have come from, and there's absolutely, it could be anything. And it's just great to hear where people's minds kind of go with it. So there's no shame in commenting, and yeah. So if anyone does get the cryptic clue, do make sure you put it in the comments of our YouTube video, because we are offering prizes every single week for you guys to win, and we will send it. And what that will be is as I kind of mentioned earlier, it's a NFL helmet, like little pocket-sized one, and it'll be for the team of your favor. So to go into this week, the clue for this is, in the past I've used my shovel a lot, so much so it pushed my hairline back.
Say it again.
So in the past, I've used my shovel a lot, so much so it pushed my hairline back.
I'm thinking too literally on this one at the moment. Some shovel passing quarterbacks.
I've got one name. But I'm not convinced on it.
Okay.
I need to have a think on that, I think, Connor.
Yeah, have a think. That's fine. You've got all week. So you three have got all week to think about this. And all the listeners at home, again, you've got until we film our next podcast. We normally film ours on a Wednesday. So you've got until about Wednesday, let's say about Wednesday evening, no particular times. So definitely get your guesses in, and any comments that do come through, we will discuss them on the podcast and we'll start talking through it. So yeah, make sure you comment.
Yeah, good point. And obviously, if anyone's got any topics, anything like that, then we're always happy to visit those too. We're always open to suggestions. So don't limit your comments just to the End of Slot Busters, but it would be good to get some help. Obviously, Chris, Henry, and I have all struggled the past 2 weeks. We need some support to beat Connor with his out-the-box suggestions recently. Chris, what you usually do at this point, you give us a bit of an update on COVID. Any news recently in the NFL?
As Connor alluded to there, we're recording this on a Tuesday evening UK time, not a regular Wednesday. So we've not really had much team facility training update. Not really very much to update on in terms of COVID. A couple of players, the Tennessee Titans kicker Stephen Gostkowski plays on the COVID IR. And also in the Bills, John Brown, wide receiver, was activated off the injury IR and then added to the COVID IR as a close contact of running back TJ Yeldon, who was placed on it. And that's pretty much it for COVID. In other news, obviously we talked about Dwayne Haskins last week. He has since been released from the Washington football team. He did play after the nightclub picture without a mask on. He did play this weekend. He got benched and has now been released. So hopefully he comes back a stronger and a better player. And then we have the LA Rams, the Jared Goff, the quarterback. He will have surgery on his throwing hand and will miss this week. He is hoping to be fit for the playoffs if the Rams make it. They've got a crunch match this week against the Cardinals. They're also going to miss Darrell Henderson, running back, or likely to miss the running back. He suffered an ankle sprain, so he's unlikely to play this week.
Yeah, both the result of two big Seahawks plays. So, as a Seahawks fan, wish them well. But Jared Goff popped his own thumb back in after it was dislocated. So, it'd be nice to see the medical analysis afterwards. Maybe he did himself some more damage with that on the field surgery. Yeah, Chris.
I think there's also a fracture in his thumb.
I see. Yeah. But, could that have been caused by that? I don't know, or exacerbated. Who knows how these things actually panned out on the field. But yeah, nice to see we're going through some injury as well. One thing we discussed a few pods ago was the MVP race. It seems like things are all settled now. The two constants there have been Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes was sort of an outside bet at the start of the season just because of how well others were performing, but his consistency has just landed him in the top two for sure. Josh Allen probably found himself a secure number 3 after his most recent performance. Could be challenging Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers from a dark horse perspective, and then sort of your fourth pick is Derrick Henry. They always like to pick a non-quarterback, and it's always nice to have someone in there who could change it. But in reality, Henry, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers, doesn't it?
I mean, that was the question I was going to pose, and for me, it does. Yeah, for me, I think Rodgers this week with another fantastic performance in the snow against a team that's already in the playoffs, a very good Titans team. Perhaps not defensively, but a team that will be contending. I think, putting my Packers bias aside, I still think Rodgers has just run away with this down the stretch. I know there's been some debate recently about the Packers, in fact, have only beaten 2 teams with a winning record. And I think that is the concern that I have, particularly with the performance that they had against the Bucs earlier in the season. But I think the level of play, the touchdown to interception ratio, completion percentage, all of that combined with the high level throws that he makes, for me, Rodgers is the clear MVP this season. I think Mahomes, honestly, I'm a huge Mahomes fan, but honestly, a dreadful game by his standards this week against the Falcons, I think solidifies that for Rodgers. I think the recency bias of that recent poor performance will probably help Rodgers' case. And then for me, in third, as you said, Josh, it would be Josh Allen. Absolutely phenomenal season, completely won me over. And I think, compared to this time last year, where we're now considering him in the MVP discussion, it's been an incredible transformation, and really, really impressive. And I'm looking forward to the Bills this postseason as well.
Yeah. And Chris, why don't you tell us? You had some thoughts on the MVP race as well.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen's probably my favourite to win it, actually, because of that turnaround that you touched on. We expect those levels of performance from Aaron Rodgers. We expect those levels of performance from Pat Mahomes. I don't think anybody was expecting this from Josh Allen. He's a huge season. He set a new Bills passing touchdown record. I mentioned last week he's the first home playoff game for the Bills in 20 plus years. And this year is his highest passing accuracy in his career. And that goes back to college as well. For me, I think he has completely turned around this Bills team. Obviously, there was the big addition of Stephon Diggs, who's actually connected loads of times with his Josh Allen's arm. But I think for that reason, he's such a big turnaround. I think it's Josh Allen, then Rodgers, then Mahomes for me.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that's typically why they have the Comeback Player of the Year award as well. But yeah, good argument. I mean, I think you could say if you look at a team around them, do you think the Bills around Josh Allen are stronger, or do you think the Packers around Aaron Rodgers are stronger? And I would probably argue that the Bills supporting cast is slightly better than the Packers supporting cast. Obviously Devontae Adams, he is Devontae Adams, and Stephon Diggs has done well to reach that level. Packers have invested in the right levels of the defense, but I just think the Bills are a more complete team defensively. From a running back perspective, it's a bit of a push, but definitely in the Packers' favor. and tight ends, I would go with the Bills too. So, I think it's relatively evenly split. So you could put the argument either way. Henry, you're the Packers fan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we're starting to get into some interesting points. And I think the two names you just mentioned there, Josh, with Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams, they've definitely both got a shot at winning Offensive Player of the Year, I think. The way I look at the MVP is, that is to do with value, the player that adds the most value to the team, and therefore it has to be a quarterback if you're judging it by that metric. The Offensive Player of the Year should be the most outstanding player on offense. That's my understanding. So I think Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams all should be right up there for that award. And I think I mentioned this last week, but the Bills could not have got more for their money with that first round pick for Stephon Diggs. He has been absolutely phenomenal almost every week of the season. And I watched some of his route running the other day on Twitter, and it's just unbelievable. Probably those two players that we've mentioned there are the best route runners in the NFL right now. And it's no surprise that their quarterbacks are having such success and leaning on them as well. Last point I will make as well is I think for me, Sean McDermott is the NFL Coach of the Year. That would be my pick for that. I think he's done a phenomenal job, as you said, Josh, rounding out this roster, taking a team that hasn't had a playoff win in more than 10 years to winning the division and now looking set for a great postseason. Sean McDermott for me would be my Coach of the Year.
Yeah, definitely. Connor, any thoughts on that debate? Anyone specifically you'd pick for the MVP in particular?
No, I think I said it a few weeks ago. Going further back, was really, really, really enjoying the Bills and what they've been doing. And to echo everyone's points on it, I think it is in terms of an MVP race. It is obviously to those points of like, and you couldn't take it away from Mahomes or Rodgers just because you expect it from them. But I think they have obviously had MVP seasons for them in their own like respective right. But I think in terms of that like significant change to be an MVP for that year, like we saw it obviously with Lamar Jackson as well, like didn't necessarily go on much further than that outside of the regular season, but in terms of the transformation of that team, how well-rounded they are, literally to just echo what everyone said, I think Josh Allen is gonna be in the lead for that. And then I think the only other thing to say, and this is probably more of like a team spirit kind of thing, and from what Henry was just saying just there as well, is that it's value for money, obviously, with Diggs, with how he's performed and what he's done, to assist Josh Allen in that transformation as well. But you can really start to see that now, and it's what like a lot of like the best quarterbacks have, is like almost like a best mate wide receiver, like a partnership. It's like you see it, like there's been a lot on social media this last week following not last week, last few days, following on from like Josh Allen and Diggs playing around, having a laugh. Like literally they are like best mates out there. That full trust is there, the full respect is there, and they know that they're doing this together. And that's really starting to show in gameplay, or it has been for weeks and weeks and weeks now, but obviously it's really coming through outside of the game as well, and what their media sides want to pick up as well. So I think it's just really interesting on that front, as to how that team's developed and how that can then continue to grow, what other players can come involved in that, and how that can just snowball. Yeah,
so that's really, really interesting points there, Connor, and I agree. I've been the Josh Allen fan on this pod for a while. I wanted to ask Josh, we discussed earlier in the year the Russell Wilson MVP campaign. And really my question is, what's left of it? Never had an MVP vote. I can't see him getting one, to be honest. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much the Russ effect, and it's the way the Seahawks are, and we spoke about them last episode too. There's sort of things systemically which are there, not necessarily the wrong way, because they're built as a playoff team. They always look towards the playoffs, so the regular season holds less value. the thing which I would say is, Russell Wilson either puts up huge numbers at the start of the season and then dips off at the end of the season, or he has huge numbers at the start, has a drop in the middle, picks up again at the end, or he has a terrible start of the season and picks up at the end. And, it always culminates in it being too late to really gain the MVP consideration. That's exactly what's happened again, but for one of the few times which it happened in the middle of the season. And as a Seahawks fan looking ahead to the postseason, I'm not disappointed that he won't get any votes, and he definitely shouldn't. I wouldn't be voting for him if that was my vote. Even when he's picked up recently, he's not put up amazing stats. So, he definitely doesn't deserve to be in consideration, but the team is set for a great playoff push, and I'll be looking for him to pick up the Super Bowl MVP instead. That would be my wish.
Nicely turned around.
Yeah.
We'll see if that happens. As a Packers fan, I do feel less scared of the Seahawks now, but let's see what happens. As you said, playoffs are the time where they'll come alive.
Yeah, exactly. And talking of the playoffs, there's one team that have really done well. They've suffered a little bit because they are the clear number 4 best team in their division in the NFC. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, clear as the top 4 teams. Unfortunately, they share a division with the Saints, so they're going to be guaranteed that 5th seed going into the playoffs. But what that does benefit them is they are going up against an NFC East team. I don't think you really could have picked it much better. That's essentially a first-round bye, isn't it, Henry?
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say, Josh. It seems like from the NFC, that the 1 seed and the 5 seed will get a bye this year. I think the contrast between a Tom Brady-led team and then up until this week, potentially a Dwayne Haskins-led team in the playoffs would have been one of the biggest mismatches in playoff history, I'm sure. Hopefully they've got Alex Smith back, but still, we've been saying this for weeks. Whoever wins the NFC East is just getting themselves a worse draft pick. And for the Bucs, it'll be a run out. It'll be a training game, I think. I actually think the team that would have the best chance would probably be the Cowboys of any of them, but I don't hold out much hope. But it'd be interesting to see what Connor thinks about that.
No, I just I was looking at something earlier, and I wish I still had it up. But from what's been something that we've obviously spent a lot of time moaning about this at the NFC East this season, how much of a dire division it's been, with just losses everywhere. But I was looking at something earlier, and I don't know if something you might know a little bit more about as well, is it's the final now at the end of the season, it's the most competitive that any team could take it, and literally in that competition of who wins and how it's been, it's arguably one of the most, as you come to the end of the season, I'm not just saying this as a Cowboys fan, but it's arguably at the end of the season one of the most exciting divisions, because literally anything can happen. Who can come out, who's going to get the win, who's going to lose, because of how unpredictable the division's been.
Yeah, there's always a way to cut it, isn't there? There's always a way to polish a turd. That would be my analogy. I mean, yeah, okay, if all the teams have won 4 games in the season, then going into the last week, if they win their 5th game and make it to the playoffs, then that makes it interesting. All 4 teams, but actually, I think only 3. I don't think the Eagles can qualify anymore.
I think the Eagles, they just got eliminated, yeah.
And
Connor, do you want the Cowboys to make the playoffs and get that lower draft pick? Would you actually want to play Tom Brady in the Bucs?
Well, if you'd asked me before we've gone on this win streak, yeah, I would have just happily not have gone to the playoffs, because we've been 3 wins less. And obviously much higher in the draft pick, but it's almost that middle ground now where it's not the best of the best. You're still going to get a high pick, but I suppose at this point it's either go out now or go out in.
Yeah. And just for anyone who might not be aware and listening, the NFL used to do the draft order based purely on the record that you finished the regular season. But a few years ago, they changed it. So if you make the playoffs, even as a division winner, then you actually pick depending on where you come in the playoffs. So in this situation that I'm posing to Connor, the Cowboys might win their division with a 6-win record. and then have a pick in, say, the late or mid 20s, which is obviously much less valuable than a top 10, top 15 pick than they might otherwise would have. So that's the situation that Connor finds himself in as a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, and it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Like what have the Jets done? And why?
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite
Not
on the
worth
same
the pride.
scale. Yeah, it's not quite on the same scale. I mean, it knocks on to all the other rounds. So that 5-10 pick difference will be massive going through the rest of the draft. And, you know, this draft is very stacked to the top. I think we'll discuss that in later pods. But it's always the conundrum, isn't it? I mean, for the Cowboys to make it, the football team have to lose against the Eagles. And then it's whichever of the Cowboys... or
Giants,
or the Giants. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot the fourth team. So relevant. Either the Cowboys or the Giants. Whoever wins that one, if the football team lose, they will go up. If not, the football team are there. And obviously, the Eagles don't have much to play for except for a better pick by losing. Well, moving on. Obviously, you know, nice to see the NFC East is still keeping competitive, but so is the rest of the NFL. Obviously, both wildcard sections of the NFC and the AFC are too. Let's first take a look at the NFC. Now you've got the Bears, the Rams, and the Cardinals all fighting over 2 spots. Essentially, the Bears are playing against the Packers, so it's going to be a tough week for them because the Packers still have to win in order to maintain the first seed. Saints and Seahawks under different scenarios could be the first seed, so the 3 at the top are playing for something from there. But the Rams are playing against the Cardinals. Obviously, we already discussed it earlier. Chris mentioned the Rams don't have Jared Goff, probably don't have Darrell Henderson as well. So it's going to be a very tough game for them. But they're sat at 9-7, whereas the other 2 teams are sat at 1 win less than that. So both 8-win teams. Now, assuming that the Bears lose, if the Cardinals beat the Rams, then it'll be the Cardinals and the Rams in the playoffs. So the Bears are really hoping either they can win, take control of themselves, or that the Rams beat the Cardinals. So, you know, I don't know where the tiebreakers lie there if all teams sit on 9. I assume it's still the Bears above the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals would take that division inference over the Rams, having beaten them the last time. So it does get a bit complicated, but in reality, Cardinals or Rams winner's going to be in. Henry, you know, you're a Packers fan. Who is it specifically that you are looking to play against, or specifically avoid playing against in your first game?
So yeah, obviously the Packers looking like we need to secure the win this week to get that first round bye. I would much rather the Bears make the playoffs. To be honest, I just, although Trubisky's had some success in that offense recently, I don't fear that offense. The Packers have owned the Bears throughout the last sort of 10 years. So I would much rather that the Bears made it. I think the Rams are such a strange team. It's one that we've debated on here plenty. A recent loss to the Jets. Now they're starting quarterback out. But still, there's something about them that just says that when they switch it on, everything goes right. They could be quite dangerous. The Cardinals is a strange one as well, really. All of these teams have huge flaws. Kyler Murray's so dynamic, and yet somehow that offense still isn't. Still feels like he's being held back by the offense. I've mentioned before, I'm not at all convinced by Cliff Kingsbury's play calling. Honestly, I don't fear any of them. I'd be more than happy for the Packers to play any of those teams. I'd be much more concerned about a matchup with someone from the NFC South rather than any of those at any point in the playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah, interesting. And for me as a Seahawks fan, my thoughts are very similar. You know, those 3. I think particularly with the Cardinals, you've always got a concern because something could click. But I see a lot of synergies between how Kyler Murray's performed this year and that team has stalled to how Russell Wilson has previously. I just think something doesn't quite click. And, you know, I'm a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury. So I don't necessarily know where it lies. But, you know, the Rams, they're always dangerous. Maybe the downgrade from Jared Goff isn't the same downgrade it would be for a lot of teams to lose their starting quarterback in this race. So, you know, they could even pull out a win against the Cardinals this week. That wouldn't really surprise me. But yeah, as you mentioned, you know, the Bucs in particular are one of the scariest teams, and you know, you're just looking to survive as long as you can without having to play them or the Packers from a Seahawks perspective. I'm not so concerned about the Saints. You know, funnily enough, I'm not so concerned about them. I think you lock up Alvin Kamara, and you defensively scheme well. You have to go man against Drew Brees, but you just have to suck it up and see. And I think the Seahawks defense is looking good recently. So I would welcome any matchup except for the Bucs or the Packers, to be honest, as a Seahawks fan. Now, looking at the AFC, that's where it gets even more interesting. I would say probably one of the best battles we've seen going into the last week of a regular season. There are 5 teams fighting over 4 spots. One of the 4 spots is the last division winner, the AFC South. That comes down to the Tennessee Titans and the Colts. Titans are in the driver's seat. They need a win and they'll lock it up. They play against the Texans, so surely they're going to lock that one up. Colts play against the Jags, so you would expect they're going to get a win. All of these teams are sat at 10-5, by the way. The other 3 are the Ravens, the Dolphins, and the Browns. Now, the Ravens have been performing really well recently. Browns have just looked a bit shaky, but got some wins, some key wins. Obviously, lost against the Steelers when it mattered. Lost this week when it mattered. The Ravens go up against the Bengals. The Browns go up against the Steelers this week, and the Dolphins go up against the Bills. If I was to look at it, I genuinely think you're looking at the Dolphins probably as a team that don't make it. The Bills need to win in order to secure the 3rd seed. They still got something to play for. The Steelers don't have something to play for. They've moaned all season about not having a bye week. This week they finally get one. It is against the Browns, so maybe they don't want to let their division rival in. But I just think the writing's on the wall. Dolphins, what's going to happen? And Chris, I know you had some thoughts, particularly Tua and Fitzpatrick. Where are you looking for them to get out that win and gain the wild card spot?
Well, before I touch on Miami, I had forgotten that we would bench the Steelers would bench their starters. Mason Rudolph, I think, has already been named the starter, so that might as well be a win for the Browns already. But prior to your comment there, I would have put the Colts, the Ravens, and the Dolphins as the 3 strongest wildcard teams there from the AFC. Probably the Ravens and the Colts ahead of the Dolphins, but like you said, the Ravens are playing really well, and the Colts have got a strong team on both sides of the ball. But the Dolphins, I know we were going to talk about the quarterbacks, and Tua, again, has not had a really good week. I didn't see much of him in college, and obviously all the hype was there. The tank for Tua was there. Now, I'm sure those people that watched him and saw some footage in college maybe to fill me in, but all I seem to see of Tua doing is completing short to mid-range passes. He doesn't seem to have a bomb. He's obviously not as mobile as he probably once was. I'm guessing with his hip injury that ended his college career. And this was the 2nd game that Tua was benched for in the Dolphins playoff push. So they obviously don't quite yet have the full trust in Tua. They keep going back to Fitz. I think the other game was against the Rams. So I just wanted to put it out there for you guys. Like, do you think that Tua is the right answer moving forward? Do you think they still need Fitz to stick around? Or is this just Tua finding his feet in his rookie season?
Yeah, is it? I suppose it's a tough one because I think they'll keep their faith in Tua for sure. Like, you can't not at this stage where, but obviously with Fitz around, the confidence will stay in him. He's performed. He's stayed, like he's created those plays. Obviously, an absolutely insane one this weekend to take them. Or to continue to give them that chance. He's been amazing. I think the real difficult situation is that you need Fitz around him, or you need someone who's got that experience to be able to help guide him and coach him and be there for him. But I think there's also the other side to that. With Fitz still around, their confidence will stay in Fitz, and what they'll do is give him the big play. I think where you might see a little bit of an issue with Tua is that they won't give him those big plays because they know that Fitz can be there to do them when they need him to do them. So why give him those now when there could be an issue that's created from it down the line? So I think while Fitz is there, there's a positive to help Tua, and then there's also a negative to take the confidence away from Tua as well.
Yeah, Yeah, good points, Connor. And the mental side of it comes into it massively. I think Tua has always been one of those quarterbacks who's very conscious of his strengths and particularly conscious of his weaknesses as well. College, you let loose a bit. He had some really star receivers. Alabama have been consistently incredible from receivers. So he's always benefited there, not necessarily been as spoiled with weapons with Miami yet, but I think that gets addressed this year. We'll look at that a bit later. But I just think he's so conscious of his strength, and his biggest one is his field reading ability, his game management, and that often comes with a downside that you aren't prepared to go and look for the bigger plays. I think from an offensive coordination perspective, and particularly from a quarterback coaching perspective, right now is so conservative for him, which is so interesting to see how that compares to when Fitzpatrick's in there. I wouldn't put it all on the coaching staff. I wouldn't put it all on the play calls, but there's probably one of 3 reads, which is a bomb on every third play. But he's not looking for them because that's not the way he's been coached at this point. He's avoiding the turnovers. He's avoiding the bad plays and just going with the safe, conservative plays, which only works, when the rest of the team is gelling. And the Dolphins defense is incredible. I think they have cemented themselves as a top team. And I was looking at which teams I was scared of from the AFC, and the Dolphins were right up there because of that defense. But I just don't see anything. They haven't figured it out. Like Connor said, there's positives there and you can spin that the right way. But I just think for Tua, you've probably got 3 years of trying to figure out if you've got a Russell Wilson, or if you've got like I don't know what other equivalent, Blake Bortles, but I just think that that's going to be their life for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, and you mentioned there, Josh, like who are you thinking about that you'd be scared playing if you were coming up against them and the Dolphins would be up there? Who would you be more scared with them starting, Fitzpatrick or Tua?
It's got to be Fitzpatrick. It's got to be.
Yeah.
But
for me as well, it's absolutely Fitzpatrick, and I wonder if they will switch back to him in the playoffs. Like Connor said, they keep doing it, and they've got that backup plan if Tua is struggling. And for me, I don't think Tua has really done anything this season to say that he is the quarterback that you drafted and that you need going forward. So I think we're gonna come on to it now, but moving forward with the Dolphins in this draft, it might be something that they look at. Just to round out the AFC picture, 100% for me, the Ravens. I think there'll be many teams in the AFC hoping that it shakes out, that the Ravens don't make the playoffs now. I think if you'd rather play the Colts and Phillip Rivers or Baker Mayfield and the Browns, you'd certainly be taking that nice, comfortable drop back passer with limited weapons rather than that Ravens team and all the complexities that they bring. So I certainly think that even the Chiefs and the Bills would probably rather have one of those teams just to go straight up against. So we'll see how that shakes out. But as you said, Josh, really exciting end to the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Ravens are the scariest team in the AFC wildcard hunt for me as well. Now, one thing we talked about briefly just then was the Dolphins. They have benefited massively from a trade, which, I would argue the Texans won as well to some extent, considering they've got Deshaun Watson. They got Laramie Tunsil, who I think is one of the top 5 left tackles in the NFL, and I would happily have made that trade if I was the GM. I wouldn't have made plenty of their other ones, but that one I'm happy with. You're the Dolphins. Now you've got what looks like the 3rd pick, guaranteed top 5 pick. If that was you, Henry, considering you got a second one later in the round, are you going Penei Sewell there? Are you going for the left tackle? Are you securing that option?
I'm taking Justin Fields. If Fields is there, I'm 100% taking Justin Fields. And that's not to say I'm giving up on Tua. That's not what that means at all. It's not a Cardinals, ship Josh Rosen out and get Kyler Murray in. It's not that situation. It's let them compete. Like you said, Josh, you're going to spend the next 3 years deciding if Tua is the right guy. Bring someone else in, increase your chances that you find that franchise quarterback. So if Fields is there at 3, at 4, at 5, I'm absolutely pulling the trigger on him, or Zach Wilson if your evaluation of him is as such. And the point that I would make about this is Dwayne Haskins, very extreme example, but the Washington football team, they passed on Justin Herbert to this past draft. And although they picked a very, very good player in Chase Young, someone who looks like it will be a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro, no one's going to question that pick. If they'd have taken Herbert, Tua in this past draft, then look where they'd be now. They'd have that option. They'd have that second swing of the bat at a franchise quarterback, which is the most valuable thing. Having an elite pass rusher compared to having your quarterback be 10, 20% better, the quarterback is always going to win out. So for me, for the Dolphins, I'm not sold on Tua. I'm not giving up on him, but I would take that swing.
And what if Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are gone 1 and 2? Are you really that high on Zach Wilson at this point? Obviously a lot of pre-draft prep to go in there, but initial thoughts.
No, not for me at the moment. I would need to see a bit more tape, a bit more research. It comes down to what the Dolphins see out of Zach Wilson. It could be a trade down spot. If I'm still there at 5 and I'm sold on Tua and I don't want anything else, then I would love Jamar Chase to help him out. That the receiver from LSU, that would probably be where I would go. I think they've got they've drafted tackles quite nicely. I think they've got Austin Jackson last year, who's looked quite good. So I would go more weapons, and Jamar Chase looks absolutely unbelievable. Outperformed Justin Jefferson at LSU, and we've seen what he's done in the NFL. So that would be my direction, I think.
Yeah, and you value Jamar Chase over Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith from Alabama, and you wouldn't happily sit with whoever you can get pick number 25 or 26 as your receiver there.
For the moment, I Chase is my top receiver. I think those two that you mentioned there from Alabama are unbelievable players as well. I think they'll go probably before that second pick for the Dolphins. But for me, Chase is the one that can make a difference, can transform an offense as the next most valuable player after that quarterback. So get him that extra weapon, that potential. AJ Green in his prime is someone that Chase has been modeled after compared to. So I think that would be a great pick.
Yeah, definitely. And Chris, if that were you and you imagine you've done what Henry's proposed and you've doubled up on quarterback, the Jets have done the Jets and not picked Justin Fields at number 2. You're sat there picking him at number 3 or wherever he's landed to you in your lap as the Dolphins. Imagine you've had a preseason, you let them fight it out. Are you making that decision pretty quickly, or are you letting it last for a season?
I don't think there's any harm in letting a rookie redshirt. We've seen it with Mahomes and other people that they've had a year to sort of mature and learn if it's under fits or if it's been thrown in. We've seen Herbert do really well. So I think it depends on the system and how well you think your franchise can perform this year. If it is the Dolphins, although I'm not sold on Tua, I don't expect them to draft the quarterback, certainly first round. I think the attacking skill players would be of more benefit to the Dolphins currently than another quarterback.
Connor, anyone you're specifically valuing from a position perspective there for the Dolphins?
No, I would only echo. I think so. I won't be adding anything else. Yeah. All right.
Well, fair enough. And Henry and I already mentioned our picks for the scariest wildcard teams. Chris, in the AFC, are you particularly worried of the Ravens, or is anyone else in there that you're scared of?
No, I think the Ravens have to be the selected team. They've started to put it together. They've started to play really well of late. Lamar looks like Lamar from last year. We've just seen the Colts have a second half collapse against the Steelers. And we've touched on the Dolphins and the Browns. I don't think anyone on this podcast is a big fan. So I think the Ravens have to be the one to look out for.
Yeah, Connor's looking disappointed. Obviously, he's been a fan of the Browns for very long, whilst I've massively hated Baker Mayfield, and the rest of us just don't like the organization. So
I'm a fan of the Browns. I stand by the point. You're
also a Cowboys fan, so I don't know if there's some correlation there.
They've done bits since their winless season.
Jets.
I mean, it's easy to transform a team when you've got 5 first-round picks and one GM who sticks around.
I'd like them to succeed. I just don't think they're going to. I do think they got the head coach right. I think they hired a good head coach. Finally. So they deserve that. There's still a long way to go, I think, though.
Yeah, we'll watch them pan out, and maybe you'll be right in 5 years' time, Connor. Chris, why don't you take us through the NFL picks game?
Okay, cheers, Josh. So Henry top scored this week. He got 4 out of 4. So everyone else got 2, which means the lead is tied up again as we head into the final week of the regular season. So total picks, we have 56. So Henry and I have 35 correct. Josh has 30, and Connor is at 27 out of 56. So Connor touched on the importance of the NFC East games. So maybe that's a hint as to where these games are going for the predictions. But first of all, we're going to talk about the New York Jets on a 2-win streak, 2-13. They play the Patriots 6-9. Henry, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that's grim.
That's the worst pick you've had all season.
That's the worst game. Cam has looked so bad. I think Belichick's just looking for a higher draft pick. That being said, I will take the Patriots just because I can't actually pick the Jets to win a game. I won't.
No, I'm with you on that one. I've gone Patriots. Josh?
Chris, I'm so disappointed. We had such a great lineup. We were all getting pumped up for the playoffs, all getting pumped up for the end of the regular season. We talked about all the battles to win the AFC title, the NFC wildcard, not the AFC title, sorry, the AFC wildcard, NFC wildcard. You know, I probably even would have begrudgingly allowed you an NFC East game in there, but the Jets versus the Patriots, what have you done to us? What have you done to our listeners? You know, just to be me, and just because I back them for their first win of the season, I will pick the Jets because
Brave.
Bill Belichick will pull out a higher draft pick, as he said, Henry, not because of team talent.
Connor?
Yeah, I was thinking the Jets as well. They're on a streak. Let them carry on.
Were you thinking the Jets before or after I said the Jets, Connor? Because
Sticking the same as you, as always, Josh.
Last week he picked the exact opposite though, and got 2 out of 4, same as me.
Yeah, 2 out of 2. Well, the reason I've gone for these games, you know, they're not the highlight games of the week, but they're the ones. Apart from this one, they're the ones that've got things riding on it. They're perhaps a little bit trickier to call. Certainly, when I was making my way through the schedule, I can see that one. See the Falcons Bucks. I thought that's easy for the Bucks. Looking at Ravens Bengals, obviously the Ravens. You know, I thought these ones that we're coming on to are a little bit more tricky to decide. So. The next one is Cardinals 8-7 at the Rams 9-6. Josh, your thoughts?
Now we're talking. Now we're talking about a good game. This one I'm thoroughly going to enjoy watching to see which of these teams the Seahawks are going to smash in the playoffs. I will pick the Rams to win. Quite surprisingly, I just don't think the Cardinals will pull it together. I think they'll bow out of the playoff race.
Connor?
Yeah, with Goff out, there could be potentially some exciting different plays that get brought into this team. So I'd be quite excited to see the Rams as well.
Their defense will be starting on offense as well.
Jalen Ramsey, wide receiver. Henry?
I'm actually going to take the Rams as well on this one. I just don't have the faith in the Cardinals. I'm interested to see I think it's Josh Woodford, who I believe played in the AAF a little bit and had some success in that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I just don't have any faith in that Cardinals offense at the moment.
No, I mirror everyone's thoughts there. I've gone for the Rams as well. So moving on to Josh's favorite division, Washington 6-9 at the Eagles 4-10-1.
How have you picked the worst of the 2 games? Because you picked them both, right? Definitely. Oh, God. Oh, God. I'll go first. Obviously, the Washington football team.
Henry?
Yeah, I'll take that as well. I will just say as well, when Haskins got benched, and I think it's Heineke came on for the football team, wow, that offense looked so much better. So if he starts or if Smith starts, I'll take the football team. I think we've all said we like the talent on that team a lot.
Connor?
Yeah, I agree. Football team as well.
Yeah, all four of us there. And Josh, you hit the nail on the head. I have picked the other NFC East teams, and we'll come to Connor for the Cowboys. Cowboys 6-9 at the Giants 5-10. What are your thoughts?
Do you expect me to say Giants?
I don't.
You never know.
No,
You never
I go
know.
with Cowboys.
I've gone Cowboys as well. Henry.
Cowboys for me. I think Dalton's playing well. Those receivers look good.
Josh.
Can I just say I'm praying for a Cowboys and Washington football team win, just so the Cowboys don't make it. After winning the game, they don't make it. Yeah, I'm also picking the Cowboys because I do think they will win.
Yeah, so I think we've actually chosen 3 of the same teams.
You know what? I'll change my mind. I will go Giants.
You sure?
Yeah.
There's that inner Daniel Jones fan.
I do love a bit of the Giants. I hope they don't win, to be honest, so they can get a better team next season. Their defense got dismantled this week, but other than that, they've looked incredible, to be honest. So they are the better team, but there's a draft pick at stake. Sometimes that counts for things.
Yeah, all right. So that kind of ties us up for this week. Like I said, I tried to focus on more the teams, more the matchups that had some playoff inclinations rather than the sort of showstoppers. But yeah, no, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I would have much rather seen the Dolphins versus Bills in there instead of the Jets versus the Patriots. So we'll do a bonus.
Who would you have picked?
The Bills.
Would anyone have picked the Dolphins in that matchup?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So I understand what you're doing. You're trying to make it difficult.
Well, yeah, definitely.
By picking games which somehow we all picked, all 4 of us on the same side anyway. I don't know how we did the LA Rams together. I was expecting to be the one outside the box thinker, but obviously that just mentions to the sort of sheer level of ineptitude we feel comes from the Cardinals at some point. They got DeAndre Hopkins, they got Christian Kirk, they got Kyler Murray, they got Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. I mean, that team should be so much better than they are. I don't know what's gone on. Hopefully they figure it out and have a better season next year, give us something exciting. Connor, as we always do, we end the show back again on In the Slot Busters. Why don't you give us the clue again and take us out?
Absolutely. So just to remind everyone, your cryptic clue for this week, which if you do have answers for, do put in the comments section on YouTube, is in the past I've used my shovel a lot, so much so it's pushed my hairline back. So yeah, like I said, put it in the comments, any guesses that you might have. Again, a 3rd week in a row, it's great to see some puzzled faces from the other co-hosts, so that's great. And yeah, if you do enjoy listening, do make sure you subscribe, and we will be posting weekly with these videos as we continue through the playoffs and then in the postseason too. So yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, and just a reminder on the way the game works, the cryptic clue is based on the specific name of the individual. It may or may not relate to real life circumstances as well. So don't get tripped up. It's not necessarily the quarterback who's thrown a lot of shovel passes and their hairlines receded, although it may well be as a coincidence. But yeah, cheers guys. Nice to record this one a bit earlier, and see you all again next week.